Tonight we're doing another soup. It is white bean chicken kale. It does have bacon in it, but that's not one of the ingredients in the title. We start off by sauteing 3 slices of bacon, just chopped up finely. We're going to let that cook. That's going to cook a little, so we have to let that render down. And that is the base of a good soup. Everything's better with bacon, at least in our family. So we're going to let that start. This takes a couple minutes. But the rest of the soup goes pretty quick. So that will cook down, and when we come back we will add our onions, tomato paste, carrots, salt and pepper, and thyme. Thanks. We're going to use the bacon fat to cook the onions. This might sputter a little, so be careful when you're adding this. It's another thing you have to be very careful with, is hot bacon grease. That can be rather lethal because you do not want to get burned with splattering hot bacon grease.
Don't cook bacon naked.
As my producer just said, don't cook bacon naked. That would just be bad. Okay. There we go. Once that. We're going to let that render down a little. We're not going to add salt yet because the bacon has the salt in it. Once that gets cooked down a little, we're going to add our tomato paste. I love buying tomato paste in a tube because then you don't have to worry about leaving it in a can in the refrigerator and sometimes getting that tinny flavor. And you can add as much as you need. It works great. Oh, you can smell that onion cooking. Yum. Oh. This recipe can also be found, the original recipe can be found on Food Network. If you look up white bean chicken kale, you can find it. It asks for a tablespoon of tomato paste. I just kind of give a little squirt, 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 and you can judge that in the pan. I've also run out of tomato paste. I've actually used a tablespoon of spaghetti sauce. Nobody knew the difference. So, I'm going to add 3 diced carrots. I'm going to add a little salt at this point. I'm also going to add our thyme. You can use fresh thyme if you have it. I'm using about that much, which is probably half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. Now, we're going to add our chicken broth. I'm using a full container. This is about 4 cups. Okay.
You can hear our children in the background.
Yes. As most working parents will. You will hear children in the background. As long as they're not fighting and there's no blood, you're good. I'm going to let that cook for a little while. I'm going to let that simmer. I'm going to get our can of beans going. I just use a regular can of white beans. This happens to be 50% less sodium. You can buy whatever's on sale. You can even use dried tomatoes, but dried beans, but that kind of defeats the purpose of a easy weeknight meal. Canned beans are wonderful for that very reason. I'm going to drain them and rinse them. If you have a mesh strainer, it makes it a little easier, but you can also do it with your fingers. There we go. My children are singing in the background. Okay. So, I'm going to leave that on a medium temperature, stir it up, and let it simmer for 20 minutes or until the carrots are soft. When the carrots are soft, we will add the chicken, kale, and the pasta. Our soup is cooked for a while and the carrots are tender. You want to fork test them to make sure that they are tender. And at this point, we can add our chicken. You can add whatever chicken you want, cut up into diced pieces about so big. So we're going to add them. Come on. Let them cook. And then we're going to add our pasta. I'm going to use the small size pasta. This is not necessarily the smallest pasta. This is the curlicues. You can also use the really small, tiny little pasta. You can use whatever you have in your house. And I've added just one plain old cup. At this point you can add liquid if it has cooked down because you will be adding pasta, so that will suck up some of your liquid. In this case I think I will add a cup of water. It'll always cook down. Then we'll add our kale. So this actually is a half of a batch that you can get at the grocery store. We've just ripped it into shreds pieces this size. We've taken out the rib. That also will cook down. So just push that in there. Add some more salt. And you're going to want to squish this down. And once the pasta and the chicken are cooked, your soup will be ready. And once it cooks, you're going to want to taste, but that's pretty much it. Now I do leave the I leave the kale large because my son does not like the kale, so I actually picked the kale out for him. I know that sounds weird, but I figure he's getting some of the nutrients. It doesn't really matter. It's what you do when you have kids. Okay, so we are back, and our pasta is done. Our chicken's done. And that is a very colorful soup. I'm going to gently move this over here so you all can see it without dimming up the camera. The orange, white, green, pink for the bacon. How good does that look?
Yes.
That's hot.
Yes.
A little piece of kale, a little piece of chicken.
Yeah.
Try not to burn yourself.
Ancient guardian. Yes.
Again, another perfect soup for a weeknight meal.